fear is not a sign that you're weak. It's really just a sign that you're human. And welcome. Hello, everybody. It is the Taking Flight podcast, and it is Megan Holly here. And today we are talking about 6 steps to work through feeling fearful or just kind of being up against something that is holding you back because of fear, overwhelm, and, those other emotions that come up into play so often when we're kind of navigating life, business, and all that good stuff. I've had episodes that's touched on the side of fear in the past, and it seems as though so many of you want to dive into it differently or deeper. So today I thought we would dive into these steps so that we can take some practical moments in our lives and we can evaluate kind of where we are. I know that I am always up against something that is putting me in kind of a state of feeling a little bit fearful or just kind of going, what did I get myself into? And so if you are resonating with that, this episode is for you, because I don't know who doesn't have a moment or a season where you find yourself stretching or maybe not stretching because you're holding yourself back in that fear. And for me, it's kind of on a daily basis that there's something that can kind of just creep up, and I can sense and I can see where I am feeling held back in, if that makes sense. And so today we're going to talk through just kind of 6 ways that on a daily basis we can be kind of checking in, identifying for ourselves, especially if we're in a season of moving through goals, if we're in a season of feeling stuck and wanting to do differently, whatever we are doing differently. These are going to be helpful because I do believe, just like anything else in life, that it's kind of building up, right? Kind of the understanding of how we operate, period, just within everyday life, but then how we operate in these different modes, if you will. And fear is not something that we should be kind of ashamed of, if you will. It's actually just, like I said at the very top of this episode, it's human. It is something that we all experience, and we shouldn't let it just be the navigating point of our lives. We should look at it as kind of a rocket fuel versus something that's hunkering us down. And so let's get started with these 6 steps. And so the first one, and I do have my little notes here just to keep on track, because you know me, I can just kind of go off into la la land, but I really want to make sure that you take away something out of this episode. And so the first step, it seems a little bit simple, and it is really any of this is, but it's just kind of really bringing it to the forefront of our minds, right? It's naming it, because in anything in life, awareness is the absolute best thing we can do, right? Self-awareness for, how we interact with people or the way that we are operating is the way that we can shift, change, and grow. So when it comes to fear, it's the same thing. We're going to name it. And by that, I mean, if you're sitting there and you are knowing and you are feeling that you are holding yourself back in something. Let's use that as an example. I want to do this, but I'm just sitting here saying, well, maybe tomorrow, maybe next month, maybe when I'm ready. We need to identify that as what it is. We're feeling fearful. We're feeling, unworthy of it. And so once we identify that that's actually fear, not just, bad time management, right? Because, I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it next week. Once we get to the underbelly that, hey, we're actually putting this off because we are fearful of what could come of it or what might not come of it because we want to see it come to fruition and we're not sure that it will. When we name it, we can navigate it differently, because now we're not just going, well, it's because I don't have enough time or it's because X, Y, and Z. We are absolutely understanding that it's this mind of ours stepping in and saying, ooh, hold on, like maybe not yet. Don't do that. Let's not quite jump into that. And so you will have a myriad of reasons why the fear is creeping in, but we need to start with naming it and understanding that that is what is kind of the main character, if you will, in this situation. Okay. And once we name it, we have that awareness to then kind of call it out on its BS a little bit more, because now we're like, hey, kind of like how I name my mind gremlin, Regina. And when I'm feeling anxiety or self-limiting beliefs, and I can say, hey, Regina, right? Instead of just letting them take over, I can name her, look her in the eyes, in the quintessential kind of hypothetical eyes, and kind of stop it in its tracks. Same thing with fear. We've got to be strong enough to identify and kind of address it. So then once we are naming it and we kind of get used to bringing it to the surface, we want to break it down, right? We want to break it down into smaller actions. Okay, so now I understand that I'm doing this or not doing that because I am fearful of, right? So how do we break it down? What am I fearful of? Like literally, what is it? Is it the fear of success? Is it the fear of failure? Is it the fear of being judged? Do I don't feel like I'm equipped for whatever this thing is that's kind of in front of me that I'm feeling called to, but I also just keep stepping back from? We need to break it down just a little bit more, because for every single person in every single situation, it's going to feel different, right? You know, I've been up against so many different things that I've been fearful of in my lifetime, and each one, I would be identifying it differently, right? And then I would be breaking it down in a different nuanced way. So getting up on stage and speaking in front of people is going to be a different, you know, kind of conversation with myself, if you will, than, you know, going on a trip that's kind of stretching my comfort zone, or having a tough conversation in a relationship. So we need to break down then kind of, okay, here it is. This is how I'm feeling. Where is it all stemming from? Are there old stories that I need to kind of break down? Are there maybe some conversations that I need to get into play that will help me understand kind of how to navigate it better? A friend, a mentor, somebody, right? Because when we break it down, we understand it all a little bit more granularly. And when we do that is when we can have actual forward movement. And so step 2 is really important, because we need to really understand what's going on up in that beautiful brain, you know, because there's a lot going on. I know it, because you've got a lot of beautiful thoughts, but some of them can just kind of get really overwhelming. So then once we break it down into smaller actions and ideas and identifications, we can then reframe. So we can reframe this fear or the senses that we're kind of finally unearthing and understanding into opportunity. So instead of, for instance, if we have fear of what people might say in our family or our community, we can think about, well, what's the opportunity instead? Yes, it might feel a little bit confronting to put yourself out there in a different way, and you don't know how people are going to think, act, feel. And that's okay. But instead of letting the unknown be the catalyst for how you act next, how can you think about it as an opportunity to talk differently to your family or your community? Because once you put that information out there, or once you put that, you know, text or email that starts the ball rolling in this thing that you're fearful of or holding yourself back in, you never know what beautiful conversations can happen, what momentum can be built, right? And so see how we kind of flip it on its head. Instead of being fearful of what they might say, think, do, or act towards us, that works for us too, right? It might not necessarily be the whole negative story that you're building. And sure, you might have some naysayers or some, you know, some hard cookies to kind of crumble. But at the end of the day, let's look at the opportunity side of it. Oh, I'm having better conversations with them. I'm feeling a little bit more close to somebody in my life because I was able to move into this direction. And then just for yourself, right? If there's something that you want to do differently or feel called to bring to life in some way, shape, or form, and you're not doing it, you're going to resent that. You're going to resent the things that are holding you back. And we don't want to resent the people in our lives, especially people that we love, family, friends, communities. I know that that's the last thing I would want. And so we need to start reframing, right? Reframing that into opportunity, into positivity. And I know it's not always easy, right? And that's me saying that, who has an easier kind of lens, if you will. I can kind of put the kaleidoscope lens on. It looks really pretty and fun a lot faster than others, but it doesn't mean that it's just like a cakewalk, right? We have to work through kind of what that feels like, looks like, sounds like in our mind's eye. And then even like physically and emotionally, those things will all start bubbling up. But when we start flipping into opportunity is when we will see the biggest shift. So that's number 3, flipping into opportunity and what you can gain from it versus what you are worried about. We then move into number 4. And so number 4, after we do a lot of identifying, we can unearth a lot of our why. So number 4 is really anchoring into our why. Why are you called to do this? Why do you want to do this differently? what is this vision that you have and why do you want to do it? And so, for instance, I'll use myself as an example, right? When I wanted to do the podcast, right? I'm sitting here talking to you on, the beautiful platform in which you choose to watch or listen. And sometimes it would be really easy for me to just be like, oh, you know what? I'm done. Like, who really is listening? Who really cares? All the things. Easy. Such an easy out for me. It would not be hard to just step away from it, promise you. But every time I'm getting that little feeling of, well, is anybody even listening? Is my channel growing? Am I on the right track with where I'm going with content as I grow and kind of get comfortable in this arena that is new to me? Every time I think like that, I have to go back to my why. And my why is that I have a calling to bring together people in a way that feels safe and fun and light, but also get some shit done, right? Like we get some forward movement. And so when I'm feeling like, you know what, I'm just not going to make another appointment at the studio to record, I gonna have to put myself in my place and go, okay, what's happening? Am I overloaded with, time, energy? Am I just doing too much? And maybe I need to push it back a week. Okay, that's a different answer than quitting altogether, right? What's happening? But then when I go back to my why and I say my why is to bring us all together, my why is to speak my truth, my why is to make shifts that are generational changes and make being vocal and communicative a safe space for myself, for the people I love, for my bigger, grander community, then I'm going to go, no, you know what, Megan, we're going to go. We're going to keep that appointment. We're going to put more appointments on the calendar. We're going to keep showing up, even when I don't know, what it's going to look like tomorrow or next month, as far as like the bandwidth of the whole project, the vision of it all coming together. I don't know. None of us know the answer, right? But when I go back to my why, it shows really what's important. And so I need you to kind of take a look at what your why is within whatever is coming to mind for you right now. Maybe it's a couple things. So maybe prioritize, the one or two that are the most maybe trying or the most you feel the most empowered by. So you want to do it. It's just kind of, you're like ebbing and flowing through this kind of fear and freeze kind of a situation. Where is and what is, more importantly, your why? And how do you keep that at the forefront of the conversation when your mind gremlin or the outward world isn't kind of aligning with you? How do you go back to it? So I would love, if you are watching anywhere, especially YouTube, where you can comment, jump in. Like, what is the thing that you're looking towards doing more or less of or differently? And what is your why? I want to hear your why. I want to support your why. And I would love to hear that. So once we kind of anchor down into our why and we understand really what we're doing here, number 5 is we're embodying this like courage version of ourselves through physical shifts. And if you've been in my world, you've seen probably almost any video or audio that I've done, I've somehow get back to movement and joy and our bodies being energetic, because they are, right? Our heart is literally like an electrical, right, thing. So we are energy. We can store and hunker in energy. We can release energy. And if we are feeling fearful, what do we want to look at when it comes to our body and our energy? It is, are we moving? Are we allowing ourselves to let go of stagnancy and bring in fluidity? Are you? I don't know. If you haven't moved in an intentional way often, in a long time, consistently, there's a good chance that you're holding on to a lot of fears and old just feelings storing in our bodies. And, there's a lot of science kind of on like where we hold trauma. I am not a scientist. I am not a psychologist. That is not my world. But what I do know from the work that I do and working with people and, my little bit of background in kind of human development and all that good stuff is that we do, right? We hold on to these things and our bodies kind of remember, I think there's a book like The Body Holds the Score. I can't remember the exact title of it, but something like that. It is the idea, right? That we're holding on to so much. And so if we can get up and if you've been following me on social media, that I have been urging people to just one song a day dance. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be ready for Broadway. It just is movement. I don't care if you just shake your hands out, move your hips, headbang, I don't know, whatever it is. My vertigo would not like if I headbang, but I will do all the other things. I'm all over the place. And if you are there, if you're not there, come follow Megan Holly Creates on Instagram, on Facebook, and YouTube. Can't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, you're already here. So hi. But here's the thing. I've done that since the beginning of January. And have I done it perfectly? No. Have I done it like with all the intention that I would love it to be? No. But have I shown up day after day knowing that, right? Physical movement helps me to feel more confident, to move through fear, to find the courage. Before I do anything that kind of scares me, I have to sing, I have to move, I have to dance, I have to something. You better believe before coming today to record, I was singing my heart out while getting ready and, kind of moving my body, right? It wasn't anything fancy, but it was something that I was intentionally doing, which is really important. Intentionally doing it, right? Like putting a label, putting a stamp on, hey, I'm doing this right now because I know on the other side of it, I'm going to feel different. I might even look different. Like you might look a little bit more joyful because you just like released your body. You might get a little flushed if you go real hard in your dancing. It doesn't have to be dancing also, by the way. This is just part of my world, but it can be a really good brisk walk. It can be literally just shaking it out. It can be going to the gym. Pick your thing that feels like the most attainable to actually do regularly that you're going to actually do. Maybe try something new, try, shifting it up a little bit, but what's going to actually be the thing? And if you're looking at the screen or listening and going, yeah, well, I haven't really done any of that. The last time I took a walk was like 6 months ago. And I'm urging and like just so excited for you to reignite doing something for yourself. I used to be the person that would say, I don't have enough time to take that 10-minute walk. I mean, I've even on days when I really don't have a lot of extra wiggle room in my schedule, to the stop sign and back. It's like, I think, 8 houses down. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes to do it. So I have no excuse. We can all shift, a little bit to find ways to do this. But anyways, what this does then is bring in kind of like almost like a courage boost, right? So if you're about to make that phone call, you're about to send an email that feels a little bit sticky or scary, you're about to go, to that networking event, you're going to have whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to start making strides towards that goal. Move your body, move it more than you ever thought to move it, do it more often and see how that shifts. You can even add an affirmation like I am, whatever it is. I am successful in this, or I am, so joyful when I create this. Add that in and see how it shifts for you to feel more likely to do the thing that gets you where you're going. Report back, please. Thank you. And then lastly here, so as you're listening to this, what's bubbling up? Because my last thing is going to be kind of a call to action, and it's going to be the idea that you take one small action immediately. And by immediately, I mean maybe you can still be listening to this and start drafting an email. Maybe you go and you immediately write down 3 things that you're going to prioritize for the next season, for the next week, for the next whatever. You're going to take one small action, right? And you're going to see where it leads, and you're going to figure out how to keep going through. You can go through these steps every single day until it becomes kind of the way you operate. At this point in my journey, for the most part, this is kind of how I operate, right? It doesn't always look like 6 steps in a row. It doesn't always look like exactly how I explained it here, but what it is present. It's there. It is a part of my everyday life. And when people say, I don't get it, I don't know how you go and, talk so fluently, or I don't understand how you go and just put yourself into these situations to go talk on stage. And I'm like, it's this. It's this with a lot of other work that I do, but it's definitely this because it doesn't have to be rocket science. We all think that there's some big answer on the other side of something to get us where we're going, and that's just not the case, right? It's just not the case. It's really, honestly, mostly the little mundane moments, the figuring out our why. And so for some of this, it's probably just a reminder for a lot of you, especially because if you're in my world, you're a lot of times curious, if nothing else, about growing and shifting, and you may be a business owner, or you just may be somebody who's a go-getter in their life, but you're feeling, not always ignited. And so I hope that these 6 steps are something that you can keep in kind of your consciousness. I was just having a beautiful conversation with somebody in my community who, once you get to this episode, I can't wait to chat with you about it. They're listening to an episode that was actually a couple years ago, well before I had YouTube, and they are listening to it in chunks. It was a little bit of a longer episode, and we just had a conversation in voice notes because I love that moment. If you have not voice noted me, let's do it. It's my favorite thing and best way to connect with people. But anyways, we were having this conversation about this episode that she was listening to, and she's like, I just going back and listening to this part, and then I'm working on it. And I'm thinking about it because there were some like action steps and things like that. And then I'm listening to the next part when I go on my walk the next day, and it just made me feel so happy to know that we as humans can bite off little chunks instead of having to just have the whole kit and caboodle right here and now. It was a reminder that it's okay to take, I think it was like a 45-minute episode. She didn't have to consume it all in one sitting. She can listen to it a little bit and then stop and then come back and then listen again. And it's like she's in such an intentional space that I love it. So hello, beautiful. When you get to this episode, yes, I'm talking about you. And I just love that you gave that reminder that we can take things in, small doses and strides. And so how will you do that for yourself? How will you keep these 6 steps in kind of the forefront of your mind? And so to wrap this up, I just want you to remember that when we are up against fear, it loses its power when we start taking action. It kind of starts, it's like, if you've ever played a video game. I'm not like a huge video game person because I'm so like, okay, there's actually a lot of funny stories about me playing video games because I'm like that person that like jumps with the characters, and I'm just like screaming. If anybody played Earthworm Jim ever in their lifetime, I'm dating myself with that. There's like a moment where like the TVs are just falling on his head, and there is a funny story with my husband and a couple of our friends that they were laughing hysterically because I was just screaming like, it's hurting, oh no, it's like just all these funny things. And but here's the thing. It's kind of like that. Like when Earthworm Jim, we're just going to stick with that because that's where I went. Earthworm Jim gets hit with that TV over and over again and all the other stuff that was avalanching on his head. He starts losing power, right? And we don't want that to happen to Earthworm Jim, but we do want that to happen to our fears, right? Because we are not fearless. Nobody is fearless. I don't care if you look at the celebrities, you think, oh, they're doing all the things, they've done all this stuff. They're not fearless. They just do it in spite of the fear, right? They just keep showing up. They've done things over and over again to become comfortable enough to do it. I was just watching, what was her name? Brittany Snow. And she was like, I am the worst celebrity because I never get used to this whole thing. Like I never get used to being on a red carpet. I'm just very kind of like, I'm a human, and we all are. So, don't give too much credit where, it's just kind of doing the work, doing these steps, doing these things that remind ourselves of how to keep showing up. So don't let yourself get depleted by the falling fear and the falling moments. Find that one up in your life and keep kind of moving forward and forward and forward through the fear. I have earrings that say fearless. I actually need to find those. I don't know where they are, but I have earrings that say fearless, and I still love them. Don't get me wrong, but it's shifted because I realized that nobody's fearless, right? But they are still a reminder that we can do it with fear anyways and see where our life takes us. And so have, these conversations with yourself, find your why, and let me know kind of what you conquer and move through this season, because I can't wait to celebrate the goals that you start hitting because of it. Until next time, my friends, have a good one.